Well, there are all different kinds of domestic violence. There's domestic violence cases that are part of a relationship that is unraveling very quickly and a divorce is on the horizon, if it hasn't already been filed. And there are those cases where the relationship is otherwise healthy and there's an episode of jealousy, maybe an episode of infidelity, maybe an episode of drinking, and where things get out of hand and a shove and a push, and somebody's really upset with somebody and neighbors hear somebody screaming and a neighbor calls the police. And you know, when there is a complaint for domestic violence, someone's going to jail. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I have been hired by wives and girlfriends to defend the person who is accused of domestic violence when they are the victim, because there's usually a certain amount of remorse that things got out of hand, and to make a point and, you know, I'll teach you a lesson, and now the next thing you know is that teaching of a lesson has resulted in somebody getting arrested. A conviction for domestic violence cannot be taken off somebody's record. An adjudication, even if adjudication is withheld on a domestic violence case, that is an excluded offense from being sealed and expunged. So the consequences of what happens in a domestic violence case are really serious, even if it's just a misdemeanor case. It doesn't have to be a felony case, because the consequences of a conviction are, if you can't get that off your record, then that falls into the other kinds of work that we do with respect to sealing and expunging people's records. You know, applying for a job and losing a job, even if you're qualified because you have an arrest that you resolved and the case went away, but you can't get it off your record, God forbid. So you apply for a mortgage, you apply to lease a property, to buy a car, and your criminal background becomes public knowledge because it is public knowledge. So it's really important to make sure that your attorney is aware of what the consequences are, because I've come across a lot of instances with other attorneys who didn't know that domestic violence cases, even on a withhold of adjudication, could get sealed from someone's record, whereas a withhold of adjudication on almost every other crime will end up in you being eligible to getting your record sealed, so long it's your first offense and you haven't had a prior sealing or expungement. Domestic violence cases are real. People do get injured. People do get hit. People do get threatened. We have a holistic approach where sometimes if there's mental illness involved, we get people evaluated so that the underlying problem can be addressed. If people need to be in counseling because there's a frustration and the communication is bad, because sometimes if there's an episode, it doesn't mean that the relationship is over. I've had the good fortune of having a lot of these cases turning out to be a situation where a relationship was rescued that was otherwise falling apart because it had this eruption, and then there's a way to wash the dirty laundry in private, as opposed to having the state of Florida take care of your business and be in your face and be in your bedroom and be inside the privacy of your home. And of course the government and our society and the state attorney's office has an interest in making sure that there are no victims and that people aren't getting beaten. But on the other hand, there is not a diversion program in Broward County like there is in Dade County for domestic violence, because if you complete a domestic violence diversion program in Dade County, the charges get dropped, and then you can get that record sealed and subsequently expunged. But that kind of a program doesn't exist in Broward County. Broward County has a very strict prosecutor, and a lot of the diversion programs that are offered in other places around the state just aren't available here. This is serious business.